Hello, good evening, viewers. Thank you so much that you have joined us, and we are so privileged to have you at this particular time. And obviously, we know that Business Connection has been packed with a lot of interesting component, which I believe many of you are also offering feedback regarding what we have actually been broadcasting here. In tonight's segment, we are privileged to have somebody who has really come to explain some of the issues around capital market, and we understand some people are having information gaps regarding what happens in the capital market, particularly the Lusaka Stock Exchange, which we believe so much that it's one way in which we can also raise some capital. So to just get to know the sounds of what is happening in the capital market, in the local market in Zambia particularly, we are privileged to have the Chief Executive Officer who happens to be Nicholas C. Kabaso. Good evening, Mr. Kabaso, and congratulations to actually have this position.
Good evening, Kelvin, and thank you very much, and good evening to the viewers as
Thank you. Understanding very well that, Lusaka Stock Exchange or Lusaka Securities Exchange is something that has really been doing a good job around financing of different aspects, investment as well. Could you please tell us briefly about what you have been doing as the LUSE?
All right, thanks very much, Kelvin, for hosting me once again. I think, it's an exciting, question you're raising, primarily because, the Lusaka Securities Exchange this year is celebrating 30 years, of existence.
Fantastic.
We were established in 1993. Opened our doors to the public in 1994 when we had the first listing of Chilanga Cement that went first on the market. So I think we are getting to hype up this year with a lot of, campaigns around just us celebrating our 30 years of existence. And I think it also underscores the value that we have brought to the economy by virtue of us having been around for that long. Yeah, maybe just to kind of also, answer your question by giving just a preemption of what it is that we do. The Lusaka Securities Exchange ideally is a platform which allows for people who are investing to be able to exchange their funds with people that are looking for that particular capital. No one has called the exchange.
Whoa,
so
fantastic.
we are literally exchanging hands between those who have got the securities and those who have got the funds to invest. And I think for the last 30 years, we pride ourselves to have had an exchange that has proved to be very, transparent in the way it does most of the things. We have also proved to be very orderly and also quite very, efficient in the way that capital and, our securities have been able to transact. And I think that has been primarily part and parcel of what our shareholders have been aspiring to achieve. See an exchange that can be able to bring about order, transparency, and also efficiency in the way that people are raising capital to the market. And I think the beauty about why we are there and the reason why we're even being so proud of celebrating the 30 years is primarily because we are a regulated platform. So I think for the most part, if you hear of people saying, look, I can't invest in these businesses because I don't know who they are, the answer to that is that you can then bring your funds to the exchange and then you're able to invest in these entrepreneurial ideas, through these companies that are listed on the exchange. So I think to us, that those are some of the strengths that we have. And I think for people out there who are looking to invest their capital, there's no better option now than them to knock on our doors and be able to list those particular securities.
Yeah. Perhaps maybe just to go a little bit down to a viewer out there or viewers out there who could actually be looking forward to see how they can invest into Lusaka Securities Exchange, knowing that they have just been hearing about shares, and some people have also been talking of how can we also be part and parcel of the capital market. What are the many aspects in terms of requirements for one to be on the stock market? Maybe from an individual perspective, I understand that even a company can also participate into this. So now, if an individual wants to buy shares on the stock market, what are the requirements? What is the process like?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I think that's one of the most obvious interactions we get from the public.
Sure.
I want to get to buy or sell my shares. How do I get to start? I think in terms of the requirements, they're very simple. because most of the requirements are just similar to what you'd have already done with the banks when you're opening your accounts.
Okay.
You know, what will be required from an individual who wants to come and buy or sell shares on the exchange is just simple KYC. You know, will require just a proof of residence in the first place, will require just a proof of your ID, your NRC, and then obviously the other elements like your bank details would have already been vetted by your bank, or if at all you're going to give us your mobile number as a means through which monies can be able to transact, those would have already been also vetted by your telecom company that you are listed with. Okay. So in terms of coming to market, it's as simple in terms of the requirements. But obviously, the procedure for you to be able to buy and sell is such that you can only come to the market through a sponsored broker. Okay. He or she is the one who then brings you to the market. Okay. Because by virtue of what we stand for as an exchange, we're a regulator. So we regulate both those who have brought capital and also those who have listed their instruments for that particular capital. Okay. So as a way of trying to be able to sponsor and regulate the market, we kind of protect the investor on one end, and we also tend to regulate, the companies that are listed. So by virtue of that, the interaction that we have with the public is through their respective brokers. So if you want to come and buy or sell shares, you'd have then registered yourself with a broker, and then that broker will be then the person that represents you before us, and then we're able to interact with that particular broker.
As a matter of peculiar interest, you talking of the broker, and many times you have mentioned, where can we find the brokers? Sometimes people always tend to ask these questions. It's like the brokers within the capital market are not exposed to people out there. So how do we work around the brokers' presence in this case? Or how can we interact with them?
Yeah. No, I think in terms of finding them, you kind of find them, I think, almost in the most distributions of where we find maybe the capital city, Lusaka. Okay. We have presence for some of them on the Copper Belt and in many other sort of districts. Okay. So if you want to get to see which one of these particular broker can you interact with, if you go to the website for the LUCE, we have listed all the brokers there. So you can then take a choice, from one of those and say, look at whichever one you want to work with. In terms of interacting with the general public, I think we must be able to give them, a pat on the back. They pretty much have tried within the means of and infrastructure that they have to be able to reach out to most of these individuals. Okay. And I think, buying and selling shares is quite a very unique platform. And I think the information is just being cascaded now by virtue of the fact that we are seeing a lot of interest from the general public to be able to come and buy and also sell their shares, onto the market. Okay. But I think as a way in which we're trying to leverage the gap that is between, those that already have the information and those that do not have and wish to come to the market, we're trying as much as possible to leverage technology. Okay. And I think in leveraging the technology, we're looking at what could be the most efficient way in which we can capture this market and bring them to market for them to be able to actively trade. Okay. And I think in that regard, we have been able to see most of the brokers, coming up with products such as an application where you're able to, trade or buy shares from wherever you are sitting, and I think also from where we're sitting as an exchange, we have also been promoting one particular app, on behalf of the brokers, obviously, where you're able to interact with us straight, but through the app. Oh. So regardless of where you are within Zambia or whatever district you're coming from, you do not necessarily have to walk physically to a broker to kind of, give you your physical instruction. Using our app now, you're able to buy, shares. You're also able to sell the shares that you probably could be holding. Oh, so that has been able to help us to bridge the gap between those that have the knowledge and those that are prospecting to come to market.
Okay, so now how is LUCE working on improving or fostering communication in terms of trying to see that the capital market as more of participants? Because obviously we are talking of information missing gaps. So in terms of targeting the market where you are sitting, are we talking of LUCE having a strategic plan in the near future for us to see that you've got a wider scope that you are looking into this aspect of trying to make sure that we have enough information across? Because you see, people have been, crippling with a lot of information, which is not even actually useful in the sense. So now, how are you working out in terms of communication strategy on this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the challenges that we really have kind of introspected on and have accepted that we really have a lot of work to do in terms of being able to cascade information to the general public. What is it that we are deliberately doing between now and probably the medium term? I think the strategic intent for us is to get as much information out to the public as possible. And I think we must be able to applaud you as Millennium TV. You know, according as a platform such as this one is already one avenue we're using then to be able to let the public get to know about how they can come to buy securities on the market and how they can also be able to invest their wealth to be able to generate more value for themselves now, but also in the future. The other mechanisms that we have been able to deploy is that, we're trying to leverage the many different platforms of financial literacy awareness, programs that are there within the market. You may be, glad to note that this month of March is a financial literacy month. So within this month, you see a lot of activities where we'll be able to go out there to be able to publish, information about what we do as an exchange, but also the bigger, space of the capital markets and what sort of instruments, are available. But also, if you look at our social media pages, we're also quite very deliberate to be able to cascade information from those particular pages. And if you come to the website, we've also got a dedicated page, where we produce, news, bulletins, to the shareholders, but also something that prospective investors can also be able to delve into and be able to appreciate in terms of what's happening on the exchange. Within the broader capital market space, we've got the capital market master plan.
Okay.
And I think within the complexity of what it is that we're aspiring for as a market is a need for us to be able to cascade this information to the very basic level and allow this information to be translated in the most, opportune language that people will be able to interact with quite easily. And I think we have had some translations of, what it is that we're doing in the most basic way of explaining it in the many languages that we have in Zambia. So I think people then that want to socialize this information in their own mother tongue, they're able to get that information out there. So these efforts have been very deliberate. Then the other thing that we've also been able to do, I think, within the bigger capital market space, has been the aspect of trying to get this particular curriculum, in these secondary schools and tertiary schools, have an inbuilt sort of mechanism to be able to teach individuals, even as young as maybe grades in the primary schools, to learn about capital markets, to learn about shares. And you'll no doubt be able to appreciate that now kids who are in primary school are able to tell you about what shares are all about and how they can buy. So we're kind of breaking those, sort of silos. Yeah, and now we're getting to have a space where, quite a lot of people out there now know about shares. They even know how to buy shares. They even know how to sell these shares. So somewhat we've kind of made some very good breakthroughs, but I think there's quite a lot of room for us to be able to do more for us to cascade the information to as many people as possible.
Okay, fantastic. Though I was almost preempted to ask you one thing, but I know that most of the shares in Zambia through the exchange market are not being used as collateral for certain loans. I don't know, for some reason. Maybe could you be in a position to explain why this is like this as compared to maybe the secondary instrument with the government securities, where you talk of government bonds, treasury, having that strong backup, against the loans? What happens with the shares?
It's an interesting, it's an interesting question you're raising. But I don't think there's anything that stops you to use your shares, as collateral for whatever it is that you want to get in terms of financing. I think the limiting factor has been mostly with in-house policies for the lenders. Because remember, equities are fair valued at the trading price. Whereas if I'm going to use my bonds as collateral, to probably stick in for a long period of time, especially if I'm holding them to maturity, that particular instrument will be held at, that particular price until when it's traded. Whereas on the aspect of equity, in as much as probably there's nothing wrong that stops you to go to the bank and say, look, I own 20 million worth of X amount of shares. The banks are also toiling on 2 points. One, what happens if this value of your shareholding goes below your current exposure? And then secondly, what happens also in terms of the bank trying to exit that position? Is that particular stock liquid? So I think those are some of the considerations that most of the commercial lenders will be looking at. But there's really nothing that stops you from using it as collateral. The security that you're holding by investing in shares is fungible. Meaning it's a security that you can actually be able to trade for value. Any possible lender looking at what sort of stock you have can then be able to take it up. I mean, we've got a very good case in points, even from the likes of where we are sitting with the trade that happened on Twitter. It was bought off on the aspect of got a holding of shares. So it just helps you to appreciate that the market, is already alive to that fact. I think the dynamics here on the ground for Zambia, I think primarily have to just be with the cultural norm in terms of how many financial lenders will be keen to take up an equity stock, and be able to use that as a backup towards their exposure. But there's really nothing that stops you from doing that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, just a quick jump on the good performance that we have had of this year, where you have recorded 12%, and you have actually, given that bullish tone, around what is happening on the stock market. Could you attribute to a policy, and what specific policy is it actually speaking into? Because obviously those are the sentiment that we are attributed to the aspect of what is happening, and what other driving factors could actually work out in this, or are working out in this.
And I think it's a good one as well in terms of that. So in terms of the 12%, that's a year-to-date, performance of the all-share index, and that's a collective basket of all the stocks that we have on the market. So aggregated for their capital and then the growth across the pricing, we're saying from January 1 to where we are sitting today, a month end of February, we have done a 12% leap in terms of the growth. So obviously we still have got 10 more months, to be able to get to see how the market will perform. So we are still very optimistic that the index will be actually pointing north. And I think from where we're sitting as an exchange, that's a good barometer in terms of just getting to see just how the public and the investors are feeling in terms of where the stocks are sitting. So I think, like we did mention in our release for the month, we saw a rally on very specific names, on the market, and I think the ones that have performed very well from our release, as you could have noticed, are the financial stocks, So the financial sector has actually done quite a huge rally in terms of the traffic of the upsides of growth in terms of share prices. So what policies then are we looking at in terms of that could have been driving the sentiments? I think we must also be very alive to the fact that we are just at the at the peak of annual general meetings, and I think most of them are releasing financials.
Exactly.
And if you notice, I think in the last 1 year, most of them had very strong results in terms of performance. And I think for most people that are looking for growth in terms of intrinsic value stocks, they're looking at financial sector as one of those key, stocks that they were buying. And I think also because all of us have got a bank account, so it becomes an easier sort of, products to be able to invest in because we understand the dynamics around it. So I think somewhat, if you have to look at where the sentiments have been coming through, I think they've been very sectorial, sort of biased. And I think no wonder we've seen quite a huge upswing on stocks on the financial sectors. We are also seeing quite a huge upswing on energy, and I think primarily because people are understanding the sort of dynamics around, that particular stock. So those have been some of the lead sort of, performance within the period. But I think generally we also need to be able to appreciate that the tones around the restructuring of our debt has quite been a huge, positive influence in terms of the mindset of most of the investors that we have been having. The restructuring, tone that we're saying, look, we're almost now nearing, closure on some of these things. We're leading now indicators in terms of how people will be able to perform. And I think on the fiscal side, I think we've been able to see some very positive strides. The fiscal policy has kind of been, moving alongside, the initial projection. So already that gives you a sense that, within that sort of framework, we've got some sort of stability around the fiscal policy. Obviously, the monetary policy has had its own, challenges, but I think we're still seeing quite a huge uplift in terms of the policies on the fiscal side being quite very, stable. And I think those have been quite a huge, leading sort of force for people to be able to come through to market. And I think generally the macroeconomic environment, despite some of the offshoots on the FX performances, we continue to see some very, positive tone around the prospects of growth.
Fantastic. I think before you actually came, I'd asked some few people who are very keen about what we do here as Business Connection.
Correct.
And they had some questions that they have actually sent. So we've got one person by the name of Klisi Chikulungu, who wants to know that maybe you could share more light about the alternative market. We've heard of the alternative market, which was actually enacted in 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And he's asking to say, what are the factors that are hindering the progress of local companies to register with this alternative market? Maybe perhaps you could explain what the alternative market means for a business player out there, explain the SME or those who are enterprising. What are you trying to achieve with this alternative market?
I mean, it's a good observation that they have made. From 2020, this is 2024, you know, we have not seen quite a huge uptake in terms of, you know, players utilizing that board.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think in terms of the thought process of why that board was created, it was created to just help us then to be able to afford more relaxed sort of, you know, regulation around that board compared to the main board. Because the main board is where you're now seeing the top tier in terms of corporate organizations, which are large cap, you know, coming to that. Because the minimum turnover for you to be able to come to the main board is 20 million, you know, kwacha. Whereas now on the alternative market, the minimum, you know, acceptable turnover for you to qualify, to list, is only 250,000 kwacha.
Oh, fantastic. But why are we struggling as SME in Zambia?
Yeah,
what
correct.
is the problem?
So I think it gets us back to the question that you're raising now. Why haven't we been seeing uptake? So if you look at the requirement for one to get to the alternative market, the minimum requirement is only 250,000 kwacha, then one qualifies to get to raise capital on the alternative market. So the sort of target market that we're looking at are MSMEs, you know, your medium, small enterprises. Those are the ones that we're looking at in terms of coming through to the alternative market. So where has been the problem? I think to a very large extent, you know, the problem could be twofold. One, obviously, is the fact that maybe the information has not been cascaded right in terms of sensitizing the SMEs to be able to come to market. You know, the requirements is a minimum of 250,000 kwacha. And unlike the main board, the main tier, that has got more rigorous sort of requirements, on this particular one, we can even give you a waiver for you to be able to register your security.
In fact, I was even about to come there. Sorry to cut you. And I'm sure viewers are following.
Correct.
What are the incentives for one to actually list on the stock market, on the alternative market in this case?
Yeah, correct. So I'm just... Yeah, so if you look at the aspect of the requirements, first and foremost, they're very lower compared to the main tier. So 250,000 kwacha qualifies you to come to the market. So if you're looking to raise 1 million kwacha, you can then come and raise 1 million kwacha on the alternative market. You know, the advantage that you then have to be able to come to the alternative market is that it's a very regulated platform. You know, unlike now, if I'm going to stand in the streets, you know, and ask people, look, I'm looking for 1 million. Nobody trusts me, you know, regardless of how good the case might be, nobody trusts me. But then people will be able to trust you when you come to the platform, you have registered your securities and you want to be able to trade on the alternative market. You then be able to have that sort of trust, because people trust the platform. You know, they trust the fact that even us as an exchange would have done our work to be able to, you know, do a due diligence on you, that you qualify to be listed. Because remember, we are a regulator. We're regulating you who is listing your securities, but we're also protecting the investor that is bringing capital to the market. So the fact that we have already kind of done a due diligence on you, your securities have been registered and have been approved for listing, already gives comfort to the, you know, the investor to be able to bring that capital and invest in your business. So now, if you look at the opposite end, where people now rushing to the, you know, commercial lenders and say, look, I want to borrow money from you, you know, with the current environment where, you know, lending rates as high as 26 and north of that, you know, it becomes quite very onerous on one to be able to borrow, because most of these startups are starting up with a very low profit margin. You know, so if you're going to borrow 25%, you're literally just cutting yourself to the max in terms of how much you're making, and you're paying back on that particular facility. But if you come then and list now on the exchange through the alternative market, you know, you cut down on that 25% obligation to pay back on your debt. And remember, equity does not compare to debt, because the only obligations that fall on you once you borrow equity or once you get equity is for you to be able to declare dividends. And dividends are only going to come from the profits that you make. And on the part of, you know, an investor, they're only looking for dividends at the end of the year. They're not asking you to pay dividends every month. You know, and if you've got prospects of growth and you want to justify for not declaring dividend this year because you want to plow back more, you know, that's a plan that even your investors can then be able to look at and say, look, that's a good plan. Let's go ahead and plow back more money. You know, but under normal circumstances, what they're looking for is, where is a prospect of growth? I've given you my capital. How much dividends will there be will be declared at the end of the year? So if you do a comparison, if I borrowed 1 million at 25% lending rate, and I went to borrow, I get capital 1 million. The only obligation I have is, if all things being equal, my profit margin is 25%. At the end of the year, I'll be telling them I've made 25% of my 1 million. So we then have to share with you as shareholders. So how much of that 25% will I be able to give? Maybe I'll give you 10%. I'll return the other 12%, you know, into, 15% into the business. And that is the rationale of coming to the market. Because instead of you paying someone that 25%, that 25% is retained in your business because you've got equity. And maybe you're declaring off 10% of that margin to your shareholders. And that becomes now very competitive. You know, we have a lot of SMEs that are not yet mature, that need a lot of, you know, funding at infancy for them to be able to scale up and mature into fully, scaled up businesses.
Okay.
So what then becomes ideal is for them to come to market. The alternative market gives them access to equity, you know, that can help them to be able to scale up quite very affordably and also be able to see even a bigger sort of frame in terms of where they're going.
Okay.
I was just highlighting earlier this morning to one of your colleagues around what's the advantage of bringing more shareholders on my business. Now, there's a saying in Africa, you know, which goes that if you want to go fast, you know, go alone.
Yes.
If you want to go far, you know, go as a group.
Yeah, sure.
And that's basically the whole concept around you listing your business. Now, if you want to see your name of your brand trade longer than your lifespan, you have to list your business, because then the many shareholders you have on board, those become your brand ambassadors. Because for the fact that I've got an equity stake in your business, I'll be promoting your business because I want my money to grow. You know, so that's the incentive, and you've got more people that can help promote your business. So you really have got a very multifaceted advantage for you to come to the market. And I think that's the reason why, you know, we're laboring so much even now to say, can we get these guys on the alternative market? If they qualify, minimum is only 250,000 kwacha. Maximum is 20 million.
You see, there's sound of capital market. I think it's now coming now to reality to say that we need now to see the alternative way of raising funds. You know, we've accustomed ourselves so much through the bank, microfinance, and that. So I think this provides a good incentive for us to actually grow the enterprising development in that perspective.
Correct.
So now, looking at just a swift way to go into the green bond, obviously this is one of the interesting components that we are even seeing the capital market master plan. How is it working out, considering that we have, you know, challenges within the agriculture sector as well, you know, vis-a-vis issues to do with climate change, and we're talking of the green bond in this case?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good question. And I think if you have to look at the conception of why we are where we are today, you know, we wanted to deepen the market. And deepening the market will help us to attract liquidity. It also helps us to attract new products that can then be listed on the market. And I think from where we're sitting, achieving a green bond listing on our market was a huge milestone, you know, because then we're able to say, look, we're attracting the needed capital and liquidity to deepen the, you know, the market that we're operating in. So the nature of, you know, the green bond is for us to be able to meet the ESG sort of, you know, principles. Okay. And I think if you have to look at the one that was listed recently, you know, it was very compliant because it met the objectives of a green bond.
Okay.
But most importantly also, it is helping us to serve on exploitation of resources, you know, and we're producing the same amount of energy, but now in a most cost-effective manner. You know, now you're talking about low levels of water in the Kariba Dam, and then load shedding is coming up. So then, how can we counter that? We can only counter that by producing energy in the most efficient manner. And I think if you have to look at the example of CEC, they are saying we're going solar. So we're going to use the natural elements to be able to produce the same amount of energy, but in the most cost-effective manner. You know, and for the period I'll be producing this particular energy, I'm not going to be wasting the water. The water should remain the way it is conserved. The same concept then works even within the agri space. You know, if you look at the current situation we're in now, we have got a prospective drought, you know, and we therefore have to be able to see what happens between now and probably the next farming season, and even beyond, you know, where we're prospecting ourselves. We're talking about smart, you know, agriculture sort of technologies. So again, that gets back to ESG. You know, can we then be able to do things in a smarter way without depleting our resources? Water may not always be, you know, the main thing. You know, rain-fed crops now are becoming problematic. So can we think about smart, you know, ways of cultivating our crops? And the only way we can then be able to do that will be elements around issuing some of these particular green bonds. We have got individuals who are doing, you know, I think there was a talk even on the news today about carbon credits. You know, already that gives you a sense enhance in terms of we can then be able to do more with less, you know, and some of the mitigants that we have within agri space is, can we find better ways of doing cultivation, maybe than doing what maybe my brothers and sisters in the village are doing, you know, chitemene, cutting down the trees.
So having spoken of all those positives, in your last remarks, what do you have to say about what you're doing as a stock market? Under 1 minute.
No, thanks very much. I think in terms of what we're doing as a stock market, I think in our last week's release, we did make mention that the stock market is open for business. So if you're a prospective business that wishes to list your company on the market, please be able to come through to us. We'll be able to assist you. And if you're a prospective householder or an individual who is trying to get to, you know, grow your wealth, again, you can then come through to the market and be able to, you know, raise wealth. So why are we approaching it from that perspective, Kelvin? I think primarily is because we want to live up to the obligations of what our shareholders are seeking. They're seeking for us to be a preferred, you know, stock market where you can then be able to trade your securities in a most efficient, transparent, and orderly manner. And I think that's the reason why we exist as a LUSE. And even as we are looking at 30 years of existence, we are proud of having provided service to Zambian people and anchoring the growth of our economy to such an extent that we've got names that we can look at on the board that are anchoring even the growth prospects of Zambia in the next even 5, you know,
Thank you so much. I wish I had enough time to discuss with you, but I'll create some more time. It has been a pleasure talking to you and having just, you know, your presence here. Dear viewers, we've come to the end of this first segment of our discussion tonight. Please do join us on the next segment, which is also quite interesting, something that is talking about enterprising development. Join us next week when we come with another exciting moment. Good night and God bless you.
It's a lovely good evening and thank you for joining us on another exciting edition of the Business Connection right here on Millennium TV, proudly sponsored by the USAID. And of course, I am your host, Rebecca Gombe. Now today we are actually joined by a very, very exciting company, and I know that most of you lovers of beautiful products out there would attest to the fact that indeed we have been enjoying the products. Now we have Share Africa Zambia. So before we even get to have our interaction with our guest with us, allow me to just give you a brief just background of really what Share Africa or who Share Africa is really all about. Then we get to hear the full details from our guest this evening. Now Share Africa Zambia is not-for-profit organization limited by guarantee and registered as a legal entity in Zambia. The business comprises of both charitable and profitable activities with the aim of being fully self-sustaining. Now, the board of directors are committed to investing in activities that will create a non-discriminatory opportunity for the less advantaged. The company's ethos is based on the Christian value set out in the New Testament. And just to help us just get to enjoy this conversation even further, I'm being joined by the Executive Director at Share Africa, Mr. Eddie Kasongo. Good evening and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Rebecca, and welcome to Share Africa Zambia.
Thank you for hosting us. For somebody who's just hearing about Share Africa for the first time, kindly tell us what makes Share Africa unique from the others.
All right, it's I think it's the kind of life transformation that it has helped. One of them is we work with one rural farmers. It's kind of a model, like from seed farming then to factory, and to the table. That's how the model is. Now, what we try to impact these people. We don't exploit the people that we work with. These are rural farmers, especially in the eastern part of Zambia. That's why we are more active at the moment, but with plans to roll out to other segments of Zambia. Then for every product that you see or that you buy from us, there is a small contribution of money that is set aside to help other people. And basically we have seen that what is important is education. Most of Zambians come from poor backgrounds, but the equalizer in life, all of us, yourself and other people are viewing, listening to this, tuned into this program, would tell us that what has equalized us or to be where we are is because of education. So we take a small portion of the funds, the profit generated, and put it in a pot where we offer support to school-going children. We have got various orphans that we're supporting in Southern Province. That's Southern Province, Central, Lusaka, and Central Province. So basically that's where we are offering this support. Few are taken from grade 1 to grade 12. Then those who do better, we put them into tertiary education, colleges and universities. Then we have had people that have gone through the program, that some have done accounts, teaching, a lot of them, nurses. We have a lady, she's an engineer. We have others, they're in the military, they're in police. So these are the people that we have empowered. So to us, it's a transformed life. That's what matters most. So, but how do we become sustainable? It's the products that we're making. So every product that you buy, you're supporting us. So the model is not trying to pocket our money to go to outside for a holiday, but it's to help as much as possible to fellow Zambians.
Okay, indeed you're giving back so much to the community. Now, we have seen most of these products on the market, and one would want to ask which one is your biggest seller, and also maybe you can just tell us just by listing them, some of these products that people actually maybe didn't get to understand whether they were really from Share Africa or yes.
All right, thanks so much. What we do is, like I said, it's from seed, then farming, to factory, and to the table. So we start with the seed multiplication. So we are more active in the eastern part of Zambia on seed multiplication. We have got 2 farms where we grow. We grow on our own farms, but also we have got an outgrower scheme that we are sponsoring, and we have deliberately involved more women as opposed to men. A little bit also the youth number. Zambia's got a youth population who are active in farming. So we do soybean seed, we do sunflower seed, we do groundnut seed, and this year we have added one legume, which is bean seed, as well as we're also going into hybrid maize. So all being equal, this coming farming season, 2024 to 2025, we're going to launch our hybrid maize. So this is a 2-way cob maize. So on one stem implies there will be a minimum of 2 cobs on each stem. Now, the benefit goes to the farmers. We put in a lot of resource to these farmers that under our grower farming program. At the moment, we are working with around 12,000 farmers in eastern part of Zambia. Like I said, given the resources, we want to roll out in other provinces, but we have to make an impact in one location, then we move to the other one. That's not to limit just to eastern province itself. So we have MGV 4, 5, 7, and 8 varieties of groundnuts. These are, as you can see from here. We also have Malaika seed, that's sunflower, which is doing very well. And also we have Kafue variety of soybeans. So these are, it's also one of the well-to-do variety. Then once the products come to the factory, it's that's where the value addition comes in. All right, we make there are two units where we process from. to avoid cross-contamination, because the other ones we are using soybeans and wheat. So some people are allergic to these, so the isolated is a cereal section. Then the other section is peanuts, which is we're using for peanut butter, and is one of the best brands of peanut butter on the Zambian market. So we do voluntary fortification on the peanut butter. We add vitamin A and D. This is just try to help to fight malnutrition, because our focus on the food that we work on is nutrition comes as a priority. So because in some cases protein intake is a bit elusive, so we try to work with peanut butter as well as with the soybeans. So we also do biofortification. We've got this moringa brand peanut butter. We add moringa. Then the cereal section has got more lines. We've got at my far right, we've got corn soya blend, which is doing very fine on the market, as well as for people that would want to, who value nutrition. And as a porridge, it's a pre-cooked porridge. All you have to do is just add boiled water or treated water to avoid the contamination from the water. Then we have all bran flakes, people that have digestive or health conscious. We have got chalk pops, we have got cornflakes, and we have the instant porridge lines. Also we have moringa instant porridge and corn soya blend in small packs. These have got targeted markets. This goes to the informal market. That the corn soya blend in 5 kg and 25 kg goes to the markets that like aid market and customer that need a little bit more. These products, some of these are among the first to be made in Zambia, but Zambians have been consuming them for a long time. Like all bran, people know what all bran is, chalk pop, what it is, and cornflakes. There are about 2 or so local manufacturers of the cornflakes, but Zambia is given with a lot of maize, and we're adding value to the maize in a different way. So we are creating jobs by launching these lines. But also there's import substitution. Zambia is self-sustainable or self-sufficient in wheat, but we are using wheat more for biscuits, bread, and everything. But the old bran is a wheat flakes. The chalk pops is a wheat flake. It's a wheat puffed product. So these, instead of Zambia externalizing foreign exchange to import from whatever country it may be, we are saving that little. Remember, Zambia is a net importer of most products. So by doing an import substitution, we are helping ourselves as a country. This is what we need to do, is to, for us to make our foreign exchange or our currency stronger, is to avoid unnecessary imports. So unnecessary in brackets, respectively speaking. For example, we are at a time where we are importing toothpicks, which things can be easily made here. We have got forests, we have got trees. We can make the old bran, we can make the chalk pots and so forth. Then secondly, we're exporting to a little bit of these same products from Zambia. So that also we have got a cheaper source of raw material in Zambia. Maize is cheaper in Zambia. You can see how many you sought after. As far as East Africa, Southern Sudan, and the other countries, they're all importing from Zambia. But instead of, in some cases, exporting a raw grain of maize or raw wheat, it's far much better. We add value to that wheat or to that grain of maize, then we export it, because every export that we do, every truckload that goes as raw material, we're exporting a job to some other countries. But if we can create our own jobs here, then we're exporting a finished product, then we're doing a bigger favor and a bigger contribution to the local economy. So that's what makes our business also stand out. Yeah, most of the raw materials, local raw materials, export and import substitution. We know that obviously as we go on, the growth will be there. And I know that a farmer out there watching would say, okay, I want in the next farming season or the other farming season, maybe I can also be the one to, supply to Share Africa. What criteria do you use to pick out these Moscow farmers? All right, I think Eastern Province were a little bit saturated, all being equal. 2024 to 2025, we're trying to open in other areas of Zambia. We've been studying Southern Province and as well as Wapula and Northern Province. So that's where we may open up. The criteria is basic and simple. All they should have is they should be in a clustered area where there are some farmers, and these farmers are willing to work like in a group for easy monitoring, easy management of the program. Because if you put one farmer here, then the other farmer is 20 kilometers away, 50 kilometers away, it's a bit difficult to manage that product, that scheme. So we put them in a structured environment. They should have land. Minimum, we work with a farmer with an acre. Okay? Then also there is a bit of, because there is input that we give them. We give them training on good agricultural practices. We give them training on post-harvest management. And also we try as much as possible to be organic as possible. So all those trainings. So if they're in a clustered area, it's a bit difficult, easy for us to work with them. That's it. And there's just be like a community guarantee. The chief or the village headman attests that these people are in our locality. That's it. So it's basic requirements, because if we put more requirements, it will be restrictive or reducing these other people. They don't pay anything. There's no membership fee, nothing.
Okay. Okay. You are partners with the Age Project. How has this helped grow your business?
Age have been good partners to us, and we are humbled to work with the USAID in general. We are humbled to the American taxpayers. There are so many, for example, this is a benefit that we're having right now, and exposure and publicity. But other than that, we have received a lot of training from Age Project. We have received massive support in technical support, financial capacity building. We have also received a lot of support for market linkages, because some of the raw material that we want, there are farmers that we are in areas where we are not present, but Age has got that presence everywhere. So they link us to these farmers. Also they link us to sources of funding. All right, so those are added benefit by working with Age. Okay. And also, just to add on, in the 2022-23 season, there's a farmer through Age linkage that helped us to sell a lot of soybeans in the Central Province, where we didn't have an outlet or presence to sell. So all those are the benefits that we have.
Okay, let's talk about what the product that you have. What value what is your value proposition?
All right, several. One, like I said, it's just to recap. It's there's import substitution. We're creating local jobs, and these are direct jobs at factory level, but also the indirect trickle down. Because in any business, if there's no trickle down effect, where the other industries are not benefiting, it's not good. For example, we don't make these boxes ourselves. We don't make the sacks. Okay, we don't make certain ingredients. So we're supporting these auxiliary industries. They're also benefiting because we're creating business opportunities for them. But to us, it's the emphasis on food safety, health, and nutrition. But also, we have given Zambian population, which we are very humbled and grateful to. They have been very supportive as a small SME. We have been able to deliver to their doorstep of variety, and also to their closest reach where they are.
Okay. Where can one access your products? Where can they purchase your products, rather?
You know, there are a lot of stockists. We'll start with, we are supplying ShopRite countrywide, so as the Choppies countrywide. Spar's got few shops that are remaining. We still supply those. Melissa shops, and a lot of wholesalers in Kamwala, Kanyama, Chaisa, but also in informal formal market, where people in Chawama, people in Baoleni, people in Mtendele, people in Kanyama can walk to most of these tuntembas. They're able to find our products. So they are readily available here.
Okay. I would want to give an example of peanut, the one that has moringa. Sure. Just educate us on how it's made, because it's a fusion of two different products. Yes.
All right. It starts from the roasting part. Of course, we have to, there's a procedure, a policy and procedure on how we receive our raw materials. Just to add on there, we work with because granners have got a problem of aflatoxin, so we work with the selected farmers. So they have been trained over and over through other USAID funded projects. And even EDGE itself has trained them on aflatoxins control. So those are the kind of granners that we buy. We roast them. After roasting, they go through the cooling process, they go through the branching process. Then there are grinders where we grind the peanut butter. Then they go into the mixers. A mixer, we add a little bit of salt, because salt is a flavor enhancer and also works as a preservative. So there, at the point of mixing, that's where we put in moringa orifera leaves into through a mixer. Then after the mixer, it goes into the filling process. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much on that, because I was actually asking myself to say, how do they mix it before or it's after?
The thing is, actually, moringa, I'm a bit passionate about moringa, is once you expose moringa to somewhere about 65 degrees Celsius and above, we are killing a lot of nutritional benefits in it. So that's why it's introduced at the point of mixing only.
Okay. Well, we will ask you to run us through a day at a factory, so maybe even our dear viewers can get to feel, especially that you mentioned to us how this is done, so maybe we would want our viewers to see which one is a mixer.
Certainly, yes. We're humbled to do that.
Definitely. Dear viewers, we have come to the end of today's edition of the Business Connection right here on Millennium TV. Of course, we were joined by Share Africa, and of course, we had an exciting conversation, and just being able to let you, our dear viewers, know more about their products, where you can get them, how you can get them. And for the small-scale farmers who are thinking next farming season, I want to be a part of this beautiful project that's going on, this beautiful brand that we see on the shelves, but they've actually given us the full details on how one can be a part of it. Do remember, this is the Business Connection. It's proudly sponsored by the USAID. I've been your host, Rebecca Gombe. Until next time, it's bye-bye for now.